the ones that I get the most excited for are the ones where I get to see the team show character. And that's not just in racing, because to me and our coaching staff talks about this all the time. When we race, sometimes we're feeding the ego, and that's the ego, unfortunately, is not what's going to help us get through those tough moments. It's good feedback, and there's a place for it. But putting up a fast time just because in a practice doesn't always, thrill me. What thrills me are those tough sets, those ones where, you really got the heart rate up. You really got to dig deep to finish the set or to be able to, maintain a time. It doesn't mean that we're arbitrarily going to put out on the board like, 4,500s or something like that, just to see if you can get through it. It's more like time specific. So in the race days, we're charting times, we're giving them a range, and we talk to them like failure is okay. If you fell a little short, let's see where you at. Maybe you went 00 on the last two, but you were pretty close. Let's see what can we do to help you set you up to really achieve the goal or even better.
Take your marks.
Welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus D. Quinn, and today I'm joined by head coach of men's and women's swimming and diving at Howard University, along with the head coach of the tennis program at Howard University. So this is Coach Nic Askew. Nic, thanks for joining on.
Absolutely, Seamus. Glad to be here, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So I had an interview recently with Coach Jack Levitt over at Georgetown, and one of the names he mentioned that absolutely have to reach out to is Coach Nic over at Howard. You guys have a good relationship, good colleagueship, and sort of a good little I would say rivalry, but also just competition that you guys have going on with Howard and Georgetown, and certainly the battle at the Burr has took off in terms of one of the most exciting and thrilling meets that collegiate swimming has to offer. So I just think it's awesome, and certainly happy to have you on and talk with you. So I want to start by asking you, where are you at in the season right now? You guys seem to be like 2 weeks out from conferences. This is sort of the time of year where the taper season starts. Swimmers are excited to kind of notch down the volume and everything. So yeah, where are you at, and what are some things that your team is doing to prepare for conferences here?
Yeah, first, again, thanks so much for having me on, man. So glad that Jack recommended the opportunity for us to get together. And he's a great dude. He runs a really, really strong program over there at Georgetown. And as much as we're really good friends, we're definitely rivals. Georgetown versus Howard in the pool. We throw everything in the kitchen sink at each other when it comes to our dual meets. But it's so good to, at the very end, shake hands and, dap up each other and congratulate each other. And we're excited for them, leading into their conference championship in a couple of weeks as the defending champions. And we're trying to keep, the titles here in DC. Georgetown won theirs. We won ours last year. Catholic University, which is also here in Washington, DC, won their conference championship. And then George Washington University won there. So
that's right.
Trophies here in the nation's capital. So, it's really, again, super glad that he recommended we get a chance to connect. As for us and the Bison, we're 10 days out from our very first event at the Northeast Conference Championships, which starts on Tuesday, February 20th in Geneva, Ohio. And it's everybody's favorite time of the season. It's taper time, baby. We get to come down on the yardage. We get to get more rest, more recovery. We get to focus in even more on preparing for our races and the events that are going to help us accumulate some points. And for our men's side, the opportunity to defend the title. And on the women's side, the opportunity to contend for the conference title.
And coming into, like you said, just being able to defend the conference championship for your men's, and then be in what seems like a pretty competitive race on the women's side. Like, what are some things that you're, telling your team maybe at a cultural level, and just like, even looking for within these last couple of weeks coming down to the conferences? Because, I know as a collegiate swimmer, like, it's just a lot of weight or a lot of pressure can be put on, this being the pinnacle of the season, and if things don't go as planned, it's kind of like a big disappointment. So it's like, how do you kind of frame this lead up, and what are maybe some things that you're looking for even within their quality of swimming or whatnot?
Yeah, I love how one of the media outlets tabbed our conference championship on the women's side is going to be spicy. That was it probably could not have picked a better kind of phrasing for what's going to go down in a few days, because it's gonna be exciting, and it can go
Yeah.
any way. There's no team that is a front runner at this point on the women's side. Our women have just as good of a chance to win the title as any of the other teams in the conference, and we recognize that. We recognize that this is a special moment. It's a special window, and that's what the conversations that we have with our women's team specifically. And we tell our women, man, it's their turn. For so long, we've said that they've been in the shadow of the men's team, and they've looked to the men's team to kind of draw excitement and encouragement. But this year, I can quite honestly tell you, they're their own brand, they're their own identity, and they feel it, and it's beautiful to see that type of sisterhood, and seeing that level of support for one another, and they're excited to go out there and put on their best and to see how it all unfolds. We know that we have to be at our very, very best to have a chance. And I think that they're excited for it. They're not afraid of anything at this point, because they've been through a lot through this season. We had a really tough dual meet season schedule. Some really tough teams up there, some really hard turnarounds, and some really tough practices. So I'm excited for our women's team to go out there and to perform, and to see the type of times that they're going to put up and the type of dives that they're going to put down.
And there are 9 teams, right, for the women's conference?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so who would be some of those front runners besides Howard in that like top, I guess, echelon of those 9 teams that you guys are going to be keeping your eye out for?
Yeah, I think the top 5, man, you can't really you can't
Underestimate.
really take for granted any of the top
Mm.
5. Us, Central Connecticut, who is the defending champion, coach over there, he does a really good job of getting his ladies prepared for big drops at conference championship. We've seen that in the past, and how well that they do. And so they're, obviously they're going to be the ones that will probably speak the most about and are probably the most targeted because they are the defending champions. But LIU is also dangerous. I know there's been a coaching change there, but it seems like those young women are swimming really well, and nothing's been disrupted. Wagner has had a huge come up in the last couple of years. Coach Colin over there is really recruiting some talent, and they're getting faster under his leadership. So that's definitely going to be scary to see, how well that they're going to be able to do. And then St. Francis of PA has thrown down some really fast times this season. We actually had a dual meet against them early in the fall, and we were like, okay, we feel like we've got their number in terms of racing and whatnot. But man, they just have improved through the rest of the season, and we were like, oh, we might need to renegotiate, making sure we don't underestimate them, or really anyone else for that matter. But certainly because we had a against them, we thought we saw everything we needed to see, but clearly we did not, and we were certainly paying attention to how dangerous that they could potentially be. And then last is Sacred Heart. Coach John Spadafino over there has always done a great job. They've got an incredible diving core that racks up big points during conference championship, and their girls are swimming pretty fast this season, and they always have a great time putting up fast swims at conference championship too. So I think in terms of who's going to lead the charge are going to be that top 5. And you can't count out the other teams either. I know that those Lemoyne is still developing. Stonehill is still developing. So I think that they're going to have some really fast times as well. But in terms of depth, I don't know if they're quite there yet. But you best believe we'll be keeping an eye on everyone to make sure that we don't get caught off guard.
For sure. Yeah. And then so your programs with the men's and women's program, are you guys combined? Like, are you practicing together? You're, racing, training, although you'll be separate for conferences, this is a combined program, correct?
Yeah, it's a combined program, but we definitely separate the two teams. We only have a 6-lane,
Okay.
25-yard pool, but even
Mhm.
in those moments, we usually have 3 lanes for the guys, 3 lanes for the girls when we have joint practices. And the intervals sometimes are the same depending on what we're doing, if it's a technique set and things like that. And once we really get going, the times start to shift a little bit. But it's really cool. Some of our top girls are like, "Hey, coach, can we go on the guys' times?" Because they're hungry.
Mhm.
And they're really fighting to get better each and every day, and they want to get in there and showcase how hard that they've been working. In those tougher sets and those faster intervals. But yeah,
Yeah.
the men's team and women's teams, they one of the things that we've talked to them forever about is it's okay to have a different identity. You do not have to be
Mhm.
exactly the same. Yes, we are one program. We share the coaching staffs, we share these spaces, but we have to recognize what's really driving each program. What is the driving force between each team? And I think this is probably the first time that we've really been able to see that separation and identity, and each of them, supporting one another as well, which is a really cool aspect to see because when the women's team is competing, the guys are cheering super loud in the stands or on the pool deck, and vice versa. And that's that family dynamic that we do have within the program that I think is very unique and very special because a lot of times in our sport, we're to ourselves. We're only about our swims or about our
Mm.
dive, or even our best buddy. Like, okay, let me go and watch this race. But for our team and our team members, we really stress the importance of holding everybody down and making sure that we got eyes on, or we're cheering. Even if it's right before the event that I may be about to swim. I can cheer while sitting down, or I can cheer while I'm getting my goggles and cap ready, and paying attention because at the end of the day, it takes all of us to put ourselves in an opportunity to win the conference championship. It won't be just one swim or one
Mm.
particular diving event.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And for your men, so this will be an opportunity, like you said, to defend the conference championship. So I guess talk to me just more about that. Like, what was it like? Just as far as the emotions and the excitement with capturing that conference championship last season, and yeah, now having the opportunity to defend. Like, what was that experience like, and what does it mean to you and the team now?
Yeah, I'm still smiling from last year. I think when it happened going into last year, we knew we had a chance, and we knew that we looked great on paper as being able to finish Saturday with the most points. But we also knew that we had to take care of every race, that we couldn't have any slip ups. And for
Mm.
me and my coaching staff, we I wouldn't say we were nervous. We weren't on pins and needles, but we were ever so aware, to stay focused,
Right.
stay in this moment, take each race, each dive one at a time, and make sure that our team doesn't get too far ahead either. And when the last relay was over, I remember just pausing, because I knew what the points were. I knew we were ahead, and I knew if we won the last relay, that was it. That was the definitive moment. I think I just blanked out for a good couple of
Mm.
moments where it all just started to disappear. And then I came back and was like, "Oh my gosh, we just did it." We just did it. And then I
Mm.
tried to maintain good, positive, professional composure, but inside I was just super excited and reeling and
Yeah.
um, so proud of the team, and he wanted to wait for that release until our name was called and the trophy was presented. And then when it did, we celebrated because it was so much that went into getting us there, and we underwent so much. That crew that really led the charge was the same crew where we went an entire year off campus because of COVID. Our season was canceled that year because of COVID, and that group felt so bad that they lost that opportunity, they lost that time. So they came back super hungry and super ready, and it took us 2 years. The previous year, the year we came back after COVID, we were runner-ups on the men's side, and then the following year, last year, 2023, we were able to capture the title, and man, it was super exciting. This year's been a little tough, knowing that, hey, we won the championship, and we're super excited. We didn't want to have that slump that comes with letting your guard down and maybe being a little bit too unprepared. I would say that was something we preached to our men's team is, listen, last year we were hunting, and this year we're going to be the hunted. We're the defending champions. Everyone's going to be paying attention, to our results and how we're doing. And that was a different type of stress. That was something that we've never felt before. We've never had an opportunity to digest and work through and to manage. So, our coaching staff sat down, a lot, having those conversations about how can we keep our team centered, keep our team focused, keep our team motivated, keep the stress level low, and trying to have those conversations with our captains and the rest of our team about, that was last year and that was great, and we celebrated it. We got the pictures, it's for the memories, but we want more memories. We want to create more, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we maintain our discipline and our focus and our hunger for what we can accomplish as a team and as a goal for this year. And I think we've done a fairly good job. There's definitely been some bumps in the road for sure, and I feel good as the head coach that we overcame those bumps in the road. And I think that we're even better because of those bumps. And now that we have a chance to go in, in 10 days, I think that, those trials and those tribulations, those challenges that we face that were different than any other moment that we've ever had, I think we're going to be better because of it.
Yeah. Awesome. And certainly the Spire Institute is an exciting place to have a conference championship. I remember as a swimmer for UMass Amherst, we were always there for the A10 conference championship. And you mentioned GW as another DC school, and they were always, running it up, at least while I was there. But I would say like that facility, that pool, the stands, like it's honestly, one of the, probably the, I would say it's maybe underrated as far as like facilities in the US, but that place is electric and such a fast pool. So that's exciting. I'm sure being there is going to be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, we're super excited to be back there. We've enjoyed every moment. You're right. It's a very fast pool. It's a great environment. It is underrated because because of how new it is and where it is. I think people are just now catching wind of how great of a pool it is and starting to utilize it that much more. But when we were announced that we'd be returning to Spire for the championships, we were really excited because that has become like another home for us, for the conference championships. And we feel really comfortable. We know the environment. We know how to maneuver within the city, and the area. The community is really welcoming to us. And when we're at the championships at the Spire, that facility and that staff treats us really, really well, and making sure that it's a great environment. And our fans have been able to travel to it, and they talk about how it's a great spectator space for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for your Bison, leading up to this Olympic year, are there any Olympic trial qualifiers or hopefuls, either for the U.S. or other international, other international student athletes that you have there?
Yeah, we've got a few that we're really excited about the opportunity. We have one swimmer in particular who's a recent graduate, Miles Simon, who's already gotten 2 Olympic trials cut, 50 free and 100 free. So he's now he's taking his 5th year. He's swimming for University of Georgia, doing really well. So we're excited about him being there already. And then we have a couple of our swimmers on both our men's side and our women's side who we've ID'd as being potentials to get a trials cut this year. We had a really good opportunity to go over Navy and swim in a long course event right around the second week of December, which was really well situated. It was right after our midseason, so we had a little bit of a taper. We had an opportunity to suit up and throw down some pretty fast times in a long course with some great competition, and to see where we were, knowing that we have a good 4 to 5 months to continue to load and prepare to give ourselves a chance. Tristan Stevens, which is a senior men's captain on our team, has a really good shot of making a trials cut in both the 100 back, and then we're going to try to see if we can expand that even to the 200 backstroke. Shanice Posada, who's a freshman out of Texas, she's got a great chance in both the 100 fly and the 100 backstroke. And then Zuzu Weze from Maryland, she's got a really good chance in a few events, 50 free, 100 free, 100 fly, of making trials cuts there. So they're kind of leading the charge now. We've got a contingent of other swimmers who are really excited about, some long course meets right after conference championships to see. And then we have a few of our international swimmers who have been doing really well at international events, who will most likely be the front runners for their nation to compete at the 2024 Olympics. We have 3 siblings out of the Bahamas, Zaylee Elizabeth Thompson, Mark Anthony Thompson, and Luke Kennedy Thompson, who we're really excited about. They've done exceptionally well over the years, and we think that they'll accumulate enough points for their nation to be selected for the 2024 Olympics, and that'll be super cool. And then we have one of our graduates, LaTroya Pina, who actually leaves tomorrow for Doha to compete at the World Championships, who we're pretty sure she's going to get selected for her country. She trains with us in our pro group, throughout the week. And we're really excited about seeing some Howard representation in Paris this upcoming summer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Would you ever have the opportunity to join one of the swimmers representing like another nation or anything? Or would you be in consideration? Because that would be pretty awesome.
Man, that, let me tell you, as a one swimmer to another, it's our biggest dream, to go to the Olympics. And no, I didn't get the opportunity to go to compete, but how amazing would it be to even just be there supporting one of the swimmers that I've had a chance to be a part of the puzzle in their development. And, if ever considered to be on the coaching staff for the US or any other nation for that matter, dude, I would just go bananas because
that's like a no-brainer.
Yeah. That's the hugest of the huge. I'm excited. I will be at trials this year. Been specially invited to attend there, and not only to spectate at the trials, but to also do some engagement opportunities for water safety and learn to swim activations that USA Swimming Foundation, some of the other partners are putting on. So, if that can also lead to an opportunity to be in Paris. Personally, my daughter, she's 9 years old now, and she has, since a little girl, 3-4 years old, has always talked about wanting to go to Paris. And my wife and I tease and be like, well, Olympics is in Paris next year. We need to make that a family trip. So that would be a dream come true, not just for me, but for my family, and to be able to attend. Yeah,
absolutely. Any of your kids swimmers?
They think they're swimmers. I have a 9, 6, and a 2-year-old, and they all have been near the water, in the water, and they're starting to learn now. But we definitely got sidetracked. Like, my goal as a parent, it was to be dad. I didn't want to be the coach. I didn't want to be, forcing my kids into a sport, any sport for that matter. I wanted to be able to sit back and smile and watch my kids enjoy doing whatever activity brings them joy. But clearly they were going to have to learn how to swim as a life skill. There's no question there. But then my timeline for initiating all that was thrown off because, we entered the pandemic when my oldest was 5-6 years old, and we're like, okay, well, we can't go swim now. And then when we felt more comfortable about, re-engaging socially into events and activities and things like that, we're just now starting to get back into, the water for them. My oldest did compete in their very first swim meet this past summer, which Daddy was super excited about. I was supposed to be coaching on the sideline, everybody, but I have to admit, I was watching my baby girl do her thing, and she was so excited. She's pledged to work hard through this winter so that she can officially make our community team this summer. And
Nice.
I have no doubt I'll be that dad on the sideline, sitting in my little lawn chair, trying to play cool, like, yeah, it's no big deal, but inside I'll be thrilled.
Yeah, 100%. Well, just like you said with the conference championship, internally it's a whole nother level of excitement than just playing that cool, calm, collected coach or dad. So yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, I want to go back a little bit, like into your swimming journey and just like kind of the origins here. So tell me and the listeners just about your kind of background in the sport of swimming, how you got involved. I know you also, were heavily involved with tennis, hence your involvement as the coach of the tennis programs at Howard too. So just what was your segue into the sport of swimming? And I guess as a follow-up, like, when did you know you wanted to be a coach?
So I started swimming early. Very fortunate, 2 older siblings. My parents could swim. We had a neighborhood pool about 2 blocks away from where, we grew up, and my older brothers were lifeguards at that pool. So that became daycare. So when they left to go to work in the morning or even to practice in the morning, my parents were 2 hardworking individuals. They had, my mom was a nurse, so she was up and out of the house by 5 a.m. My dad, was an entrepreneur, businessman, practiced law. So he was on the road a lot. He was out in so it was important for us as a family, to get the boys out of the house. I think that was probably like the most important thing to my parents, is get the boys out of the house so they don't tear this house up. And their means to do that was sports, activities, and employment. There, we were not allowed to be idle. If being bored was not something you could say in our house, because if you dared to be like, "Oh, Mom, I'm bored," or "Dad, I'm bored," they would find stuff for us to do. And they're like, "You know what? We're about to get you into this. We're going to sign you up for this," because we know what bored usually leads to when you have 3 boys in the house. So we were very fortunate, in that aspect, growing up and following in my older brother's footsteps, and being exposed and having access to the community pool at such a young age, and had a great age group coach, Miss Mary Resbus, who I talked to, reconnected with last year after all the excitement that happened with the news and the media and things like that, and hadn't talked to her in God knows, maybe even 2 decades or even more. And we were able to reconnect. But she was such an amazing figure in my life that led me to love being a part of the swim team, and being able to develop as a young kid and as a swimmer and as an athlete. And she was so nurturing and motherly, but she didn't play. Like she was just like my mom. Once she said something, you did it. And if you didn't, she was going to raise her eyebrows or put you in your place as she should. And it was just really, really a blessing to be a part of that kind of upbringing. And then as I continued to grow, I stayed, near and close to the pool and started competing, and showed some talent, I guess you would say, and continued to do really well and making different cuts in Junior Olympics and represent, going to states and things like that in high school. And, and all along there, I picked up tennis. And again, I think that was really the product of just being busy. After the pool would close in the evenings, I really didn't want to go home in the summertime, because if I went home, my mom was going to put me to bed, and I had too much energy for that, and I wasn't ready to go to bed, and would just cross over from the swimming pool right over to the tennis courts, where my dad would be there playing with his friends in the evenings, because it was too hot to play during the day. So no one would go out to the tennis courts until the sun set. And summertime, the sun didn't set until like 7:30, 8 p.m., depending on the month. and would go there and kind of hit a few balls with the OGs on the court. And they entertained me. I could say that. And finally, started, because I'm super competitive. I think one day, one of the players out there was like, let's play a couple points. And I was like, points? I just want to hit the ball. They're like, no, we're going to score. And, when I got introduced to scoring, I think that's when it bit me to really pick up tennis even more, because I lost bad and I don't like losing. And so I started playing more and more and more, as well as continuing to keep swimming. And I think, quite honestly, tennis saved my swimming career. And I think swimming saved my tennis career, because when swimming got really tough as I got older and didn't see the time drops quite as frequently, and everything is associated with time drops or winning a medal, or how close can you get to making the Olympic team, right, in our sport. Right. And as you get older, you start to hit the reality of how difficult it is to win a medal or break a record or be in contention to make the Olympics. And that probably put me in a place, not probably, it definitely put me in a place where I was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. But being able to have another outlet in sport, I think it was really cool for me to continue to play tennis. And it allowed me to have a break from swim, which, now we call it just an active recovery. It was just a different form of exercising and whatnot. And when I came back to swim, I was refreshed, I was renewed, and I was ready to put in the work again. And, got the opportunity to get an offer for Howard University to swim. And I knew I always wanted to swim for a Division I HBCU. And at that time, there were only 3, 2 of which had men's teams. The third did not have a men's team. So obviously I couldn't swim there. It was Florida A&M in Tallahassee, Florida, and Howard University. And, I chose Howard. It was a great fit for me, and continued to swim, also play tennis all 4 years as a dual sport athlete. And was surrounded by, amazing teammates, amazing coaches, amazing, friends that were super supportive of what we were doing as athletes, and, kind of kept that going on both sides. The switch to coaching, I started coaching in high school, and it was really just in the form of teaching clinics or participating in clinics, and, really loving that connection between, a teacher and someone who was willing to learn, or a coach and someone who was willing to learn, and enjoyed being a part of that person's space for that given moment to help them. And I never thought in a million years that I would take on coaching as a profession. My professional career track was supposed to take me through medical school and to be a practicing ophthalmologist. That was my ambition in life, and that's what I wanted to do. And I was very passionate about it. And when I made the decision that I was going to switch gears, I was working as an optometric technician for the last 4 or 5 years, really enjoyed it. But 2 things were going that hit kind of catastrophically at the same time. I recognized how expensive medical school was going to be. And I had no real plan or resources to be able to afford it. And then I also lost my middle brother, who was really inspirational to me in my athletic journey, in my swimming journey in particular, because he loved to swim. Like, this dude, he was swimming master swimming in his late 20s and 30s. He would call me and talk about his races and the training that he's doing. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, guy, that's cool for you. But he unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer, and within 3 months we lost him. And that hit really, really hard. And I realized for me how much I didn't want to be on the treatment side of medicine or healthcare, or however you want to term it. I wanted to try to do something on the other side. I wanted to do something in maybe the preventative side. And because I was coaching during the time, both swimming and tennis, and I knew how much I enjoyed it, and I was working with a lot of youth, that was so fulfilling to me. And I knew, I was like, well, this feels right. And so I started coaching full time from that point forward. And most of the coaching at that time was tennis. I was coaching at an organization, a grassroots organization right here in Maryland, and loved it. And we took our kids to, local and state and national level competition. I got a chance to start working with pro players and and aspiring pros. Then I started working for the USTA as a national player development faculty coach. I was traveling the country. Meanwhile, I was still coaching masters for swimming and things like that. And then I got the opportunity to come back to Howard. The athletic director was like, hey, our swim coach is stepping down and we're looking for somebody. And would you be interested in? I was, sure. Let's have the conversation. Let's see what it looks like. And then lo and behold, a year and some change later, I was able to step in as a head coach here at Howard, and now I'm in my 10th season. So the journey has been a lot, and it's been very challenging. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it's absolutely been the pathway that the good Lord has ordained for me. These are the steps He wanted me to take, and this is the position that He wanted me, to go in. And I'm forever grateful that because my life has truly been fulfilled in every way.
Yeah. That's a lot. Like, I have a lot that I want to unpack just all of that. Number one, you mentioned one thing, which was just how tennis helped your swimming and how swimming helped your tennis, in the sense where, I relate it to, I was a runner as well as a swimmer, but once I stepped away from running to solely focus on swimming, like, your identity can really become, that one sport. And so I think that's a good message for maybe, just athletes that are younger today, like, not, solely putting all of your attention on one sport, because, like you said, very quickly you get wrapped up in attaching your success, your own identity and your success to what cuts are you getting, what medals are you getting, how, high of a meet are you able to qualify and achieve, like, and then it just gets really, really hard. And so I think that was a cool point, like, maybe, trying to encourage kids to try, more than one sport, complement swimming with another sport. It could be, running, it could be tennis, it could be whatever, soccer. And obviously you don't want too much overlap in the same season, but I think that's a cool message, especially early on. Like, when they're young, we don't need 8, 9, 10-year-olds only swimming, until they're whatever in college. Like, that often is when you see a burnout, and that's when you see a little bit of trouble. So I like that.
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent for athletic development, and the science tells us that the athletes who tend to be the most successful are those that early on played several different sports, had different activities. That early specialization, sure, it can work out for one or two, and that could be special. There's no question about that. But what happens to the thousands and thousands of others? And that's where my concern definitely comes into play. And then we also see that those that have a better athletic base, who have played multiple sports, who are better balanced, are the ones who are the least likely to become injury, especially overuse, type of injury. So, I absolutely advocate for individuals to be, very well-rounded. But then at the same time, as you get older and older, you have to start to prioritize. So then, the big push also comes to us, as coaches. We have to be super understanding if athletes do show a lot of promise or are doing exceptionally well in more than one sport. It shouldn't be just a complete shut off. And I totally understand when coaches do get caught up in that, because they're only thinking about what that athlete can do for them versus what's really best, potentially for that athlete. And that could be a tough ask, and it may not be a right fit for certain coaches or certain programs, and, no knock to their decisions. But at the same time, I think we do need to be as understanding as we possibly can. I'm not saying that, we have to say, absolute yes to every scenario, but we should definitely sit down and have the conversation about what that could look like. I was very fortunate because in my two sports, there was very little overlap, and especially at the most important time. So when conference championships was for swimming being a winter sport, that was February. Tennis conference championships is in April. So, it was easier for me to be able to manage that schedule. And to be quite honest, my college swim coach and my college tennis coach, they were happy that I was maintaining a certain level within the times which were deemed as their sports off season. So when swim's off season was going, I was still in full go mode for tennis. So I was staying in great shape.
Right.
And then when tennis was in the off season, I was in full go mode for swim, which means I was going to be in great shape for tennis once we went there. So it worked out well for me. And there's no doubt that there are certain sports that you can't have overlap. Like, you can't be a swimmer and a basketball player because they're both winter sports. It's just that overlap. There's no compromise in being able to toggle around. And then I don't know how many people would actually be able to swim at full meet and then go play basketball at full capacity. The only thing you want to do after meet is eat and sleep, so
exactly.
There's definitely limitations to that, but I don't think there's enough conversation, enough openness to the conversation of there, both from a physical standpoint and from a, like you said, from a burnout, from a mental standpoint, that release, that reset that you can have from doing something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you. Are there any parallels that you see, like as both an athlete and a coach, like with sports like tennis and swimming? Because you have to, switch hats as soon as the swim season's over and go over to tennis. So yeah, are there like parallels in your coaching and like even within the sports themselves that you see?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my coaching style is pretty much the same when I'm on the tennis court or even when I'm on the pool deck. Number one principle is patience. This is at this age and stage, everything is about development and everything is about, finding the right way in order to get to your particular athlete. And then the next thing is no two swimmers, no two tennis players are exactly the same, but we have to coach them inside of, what we call parameters. So finding out what are the exact parameters for each athlete are going to be, things that come with a lot of time and effort and energy, placing just them and as a program. And then progressions, all about that periodization chart. When are the biggest meets or the biggest matches? What do we want to peak for? When do we need to rest? When do we need to take those breaks? Those are super important as we go along. And, I think for both sports, for me as a coach, that thrill of being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, especially from the college perspective, because outside of college, when we have age group swimmers or what we call juniors in tennis, you're really solely focused on you. But when you get to the college level, you've got to replace the I with we, and what's best for the team. And that's a huge shift for most swimmers. If they've swam in high school, then they have a hint of it. But, as we all know, not all high school teams are built the same. So that level of competitiveness across the different high schools could be kind of dicey. But when you get to college, you're really having to focus in on what's the best for the team. And we always have this conversation within the season, of swimmers coming into the program, like, oh yeah, I'm this swimmer. And I was like, well, the team needs you to be this, right? And if you're not willing or even able to have that versatility, because let's say if you're a breaststroker, but your breaststroke time is not, one of the times that will get you into the lineup for a dual meet, what else can you do? Otherwise you're sitting on the bench, or, if you can swim a great 2 IM, okay, there's a good spot for you, or a 50 free. That might be a tough spot to get into because everybody wants to swim that, but at least you have more options as you go along. And that way you have to have a team first mentality when you're doing that, because otherwise your woe is me because I didn't get to swim the events that I really, have swum the most or enjoy the most. So I think the same thing, on the tennis side, you've got to be team focused. We just had this conversation with our team. You have a 6 singles lineup and every point is equal. So if you're the number one player on the team and you're playing number one line singles, your point is just as valuable as a person playing number 6. So you can't, only be focused on you. You've got to make sure that the entire team is getting better. Otherwise, yeah, you might win your match, but the rest of the team loses theirs. Ultimately, your team loses the match. And the goal is
Right.
to have match wins as a team so that you can, continue to raise your program's level, and, contend for championships.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I like it. Yeah, just as a coach, yeah, managing kind of the individual maybe nature of the sport to make it a more kind of like collective approach and selfless,
Yeah.
definitely at the college level. And you're right, like that is the shift at the college level. Like even though it can be very individualized, it's all about performing for something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great. Awesome. Well, I have a question. When it comes to like anything that's like a game changer as far as training in your swimming, like I guess like in I guess as far as a lot of the discourse that I've seen around swimming now is like, and I've been asking other coaches this, is like training at race speed or like training faster. Some programs have the opportunity to have their swimmers put on some fast suits and get up on the blocks and maybe incorporate that in practices and meets. And I know that there's some varying opinions on it, but yeah, is there anything that you do at Howard that you are just a strong believer in, like, hey, this is a game changer for us, as far as the physical preparation, but also the mental preparation?
Yeah, I think so. I'm really proud of our program design, and I think that we have done a great job of, number one, putting a lot of hard work and thought into it every year, and feeling good about the blueprint. But even with that, being adaptable and evolving with the sport, whether it be new science and technology, or whether it be the new student athletes that we have coming in the door. If we don't, then we're not going to be as progressive and as we possibly can if we don't continue to adapt. But you can't throw your program completely out the window and adopt a whole new one, obviously, if things are going well. And for us, things have continued to go really well every single season, so we know the majority of what we're doing is right. We just need to make little tweaks here and there every new season to make sure that it meets the needs of the swimmers and the divers that we have in the program. When it comes to the race pace and things like that, when we are looking at our program, we're trying to make our program as dynamic as possible. We try to make the majority of what we do what I call an OSFA, right? A one size fits all. So in our program design, we have technique work on certain days. We have stroke work on certain days. We have our distance disciplines on certain days. So our distance dogs, our middies, and our sprint group, separated and doing different workouts. And then we have our race day workouts. So, we feel really, really strong that Saturday is the absolute most important training day of the entire week for all of college swimming, because that's the day that the championship is either won or lost. We can be in the lead going into Saturday, and if we don't swim well on Saturday, then we can lose. We can be behind on Saturday and swim really great and have a chance to win. So we have in our program, we have race day Saturdays. So whatever we do is off the block for time, and we chart all that data and we compile it. And the certain workouts that we do, we repeat them again in the season to see where we are. The athletes are allowed to suit up for practice during that time to, again, get a feel of what that race feels like with the suit on. And they're swimming it in the middle of the season, tired, sore, heavily loaded. And we focus on competing. What are the things that you're going to focus on in this race that are going to help you when you feel it at conference championships or, another really big meet? We're really big on resistance. So using towers and socks and drag jerseys, things like that, to, again, just to really load our athletes up and to make them work even harder within, the design. So, it's really difficult to be too specialized for us as a mid-major. We just don't have enough space. We don't have an Olympic-sized pool where we can put 3 or 4 or 5 different groups, training groups in the pool at one time and be able to really work with them. It's just not enough time in a day and not enough space for us. And I know a lot of other programs who are fortunate to have more space are able to do that, and they recruit specifically, in that space. And what we do in the recruiting side is, we're very open and transparent about what it looks like. And everybody that comes in has to know that, hey, this is what it's going to look like. I have to be okay with it. Otherwise, it's going to probably be pretty tough. But yeah, the dynamic approach has proven to be the most beneficial for us and for where we are.
Is there a favorite set that or not a favorite set? Yeah, like a favorite, I don't know, day, like you're talking about the Saturdays where you get to race and train. Like, is there a set you look at and you're like, oh, I cannot wait to see what they do with this one? Or like, I don't know. I'm excited to just see, what happens when the swimmers get to tackle this.
Yeah, I love whatever the set is for the day, because I'm like, man, this is a new day. We get a new opportunity to get better. I think the ones that I get the most excited for are the ones where I get to see the team show character. And that's not just in racing, because to me and our coaching staff talks about this all the time. When we race, sometimes we're feeding the ego, and that's the ego, unfortunately, is not what's going to help us get through those tough moments. Those tough challenges, when those opportunities to really, really raise your level. It's good feedback, and there's a place for it. But putting up a fast time just because in a practice doesn't always, thrill me. What thrills me are those tough sets, those ones where, you really got the heart rate up. You really got to dig deep to finish the set, or to be able to, maintain a time. It doesn't mean that we're arbitrarily going to put out on the board like, 4,500s or something like that, just to see if you can get through it. It's more like time specific. So in the race days, we're charting times. We're giving them a range, of time to be in for a particular set. So if their race day time, let's say for one of our young ladies, they hit a 54 mid and 100 freestyle, right? It was pretty average for our team. When we go a particular set, we'll do a lot of field work, a lot of drill work, and then we'll back that up with some speed work. We'll go 3 100s on the 110, but you have to hold 5 seconds or less within your race day time. And so they know in their mind what their race day time is. And they're like, oh, I got to hold 59s, and in this a 110 send off. That's tough. And being able to see that character reveal, are they going to get up and go for it? And we talked to him like, failure is okay. If you fell a little short, let's see where you went. Maybe you went 00 on the last 2, but you were pretty close. Let's see what can we do to help you set you up to really achieve the goal or even better. So those are the things that really thrill me, or when I see the team challenged, and I see them, really show great character in how they're training it versus, the success. I mean, success, we can set up our team for success in every set. That's not hard to do. Our job is to set our team up to see failure and to embrace it as part of the process. And that's what gets me going a lot more than just seeing them. Oh yeah, great, you hit that time. Well, that probably means the interval wasn't fast enough. We need to challenge you. We need to push you. And again, I'm not saying that we need to do, sets of 1,050s, just to see if we can get through it. But things that are meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. I like the part you said about as fun as racing is, and watching, the competitive side of the sport unfold in the meets. It can feed the ego, and so it's nice when you're able to get back to the training and in the lab, if you will, and then see like, okay, these sets are going to actually push the character of our swimmers. These are going to test what they're made of, and that resilience aspect. So I'm gonna take that because that's good. Awesome. All right. Well, switching gears a little bit as we wind down, I did have the pleasure of like getting to kind of see you at the college coaches convention at my first year at Wesleyan. I think it was 2022 in Indianapolis, and you had a presentation on just sort of coaching the Black athlete and sort of just a overall kind of shared perspective of just having more diversity in our sport, and what can coaches and athletes and just people in general do to kind of build a little bit more awareness and have some own education on your end. So I was looking back and I was looking at my notes, and I'll just read the bullets that you had and kind of segue into a question. But the title was Coaching Black Athletes, 3 Things to Know. And number 1 was there is pain and confusion. Number 2, there is a diversity problem in our sport. And number 3 is there is something you can do about it. So I guess my question, segueing off of that, is just like, what actions can we do to make this sport more inclusive to people of color? And that's for, any listeners of this podcast, coaches, athletes, parents. Yeah.
The question is a really special question for me, and what I think we can all do is something. And what that something is for each of us individually and where we are is, again, dependent upon, our current situation. So, a few things, on a very short list is, number 1, if you are a collegiate team, or even if you are an age group team, consider hosting a clinic and specifically targeting an underserved or minority community and extending the invitation, because access is one of the leading causes for our diversity problem. There are not enough community pools with people who are higher level trainers or coaches or teachers to be able to first learn how to swim, and then 2, to find a pathway into a club team that could lead to a year-round swimmer. So consider hosting a clinic, consider hosting an event. There are a lot of organizations that you can partner with that will help to keep the costs down. USA Swimming Foundation has grants specifically designed for that. You have also different organizations like American Red Cross. You have the YMCA, and you also have some sororities and fraternities. Sigma Gamma Rho in particular has a partnership with USA Swimming called the Swim 1922, where they host clinics. And maybe your pool or your college pool could be a site for that clinic that could be hosted there. The other thing is taking an opportunity, once you're seeing a person of color who has taken interest in the sport, to help usher them into the sport and making it even more comfortable. Because I can tell you, quite honestly, growing up, even though I grew up around the corner from a community pool, when I traveled to other pools and other sites as a competitive swimmer, it was not very welcoming. You can imagine a 7 or 8 year old child, number 1, just child, period, going into a new environment. And then 2, looking at it from the lens of a person who doesn't see individuals who look like them. There are very few, if any, Black officials that I can remember growing up in age group swimming. There are very few timers. There are very few competitors and parents. So just going into an environment that was, kind of scary, just because it was different, not because of anyone did anything necessarily wrong in that moment, but it was because of the difference in it, being more open and welcoming and ushering. I often talk about, it's not just about say, hey, well, our pool is a public pool and anybody can come, anybody can come in at any time. That's not enough. We should be able to, as people, to say, recognize that, hey, you know what? Can I help you here? Let me show you where this is. This is, or you're trying to warm up. This is where you can put your things, and just being, good people around the deck is something that all of us have to strive for in those moments. So there's always something that could be done. And, other things in terms of, as a coach or a club team, you can volunteer time, as a college coach. I'm sure in any city, I'm sure there are pools where there is probably a collection of minorities. Maybe that's a space where you can volunteer time. We at Howard, we take our team to some of the different sites around the city, just to volunteer time as coaches, as mentors. So again, that they can see an image of professional or elite level swimmers, even if that group may never consider collegiate swimming. it's just another positive reinforcement in this aquatic space. So as a coach, or even as a swimmer or even swim parent, being able to volunteer in those spaces. And then lastly, just another suggestion would be resources. So, maybe you have a ton of kickboards or a ton of goggles and caps and things like that. Those could be great donations, to a swim clinic or swim pool or facility that, may not have that type of access to the things that are required to be able to be in the pool, and especially as a young starter of things needed. So those are just a few suggestions, but at the end of the day, it boils down to do something, and anybody, whatever that means for you in your space. Maybe it's a donation, a financial donation to the organizations that are doing more of the physical work and having volunteers and having special events. Maybe that could be the something that fits for you and whomever.
Like even just doing research on my own, since like hearing you speak at that convention, it kind of opened my eyes because I guess as a white swimmer in a predominantly white sport, it's just something that you're not aware of, or you're not made aware of until you have to think about it. Especially like jumping over to the coaching side. I think that opens a new lens for you as a coach. And so, yeah, but like in order to understand why, you have to look at the history, right? And like you said, accessibility, that has always been, kind of like an underlying issue for people of color. And so it just has to start with, first and foremost, like getting people to people of color to have comfortability in the water safety, learning to swim, like you said, within your own kids that you have now. Like, who knows, maybe if they'll be competitive swimmers, but certainly your priority was to get them to learn how to swim. And so I think that's like the underlying level of importance is just the water safety piece for sure. But yeah, that's all great. And then last question here before we wrap up is just, are you a fan of get out swims? And if so, do you have any favorite memory of just like an electric, exciting get out swim?
As a swimmer, I was a big fan of get out swims. As a coach now, not so much. I remember early on when I first took on Howard, the team asked for a get out swim like almost every week. It's like, hell, coach, if I do this, can we all get out? And of course, I said yes more than I probably should have then. But now, I know how much work that we have to do to get better. And there are a few times where I'll offer up or be amenable to a suggestion for what a good get out swim should be like. For me now, where we are, the get out swims will typically be, goal chasing. So you have to put up a certain time or you have to beat a certain person. We're really big on competing in our environment now. So we do some races that we call staggered races. So that way the race truly comes down more to the finish than, if I'm a 50 point, swimmer and you're a 45 point, I get a 5-second head start. And now you have to chase me down. I have to try to maintain a lead. And it becomes more of an equalizer. So we'll do certain things like that. And maybe some of the team, or, if we separate the team, that group can get out, or this group has to do extra work or things like that. But as a swimmer, I love to get out swims. Like, woohoo. As a coach, we probably, if nobody on the team says anything about a get out swim, we won't necessarily bring it up through the season.
Yeah, but like at this point too, like just like you said, you love the racing environment for your summers. So doing something like staggered races and just getting some electricity in the swim environment, I think is always fun. Well, that's great. Well, Nic, like, thanks again for sitting down and taking the time to chat with me here. Best of luck to your men and women at the upcoming conferences here, and certainly with the tennis season coming up too. And I'll keep my eye out for the results. I'm looking forward to just seeing what swims your team is able to produce. So and if there's anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up, now's the time.
No, man, this has been super cool. Love sitting down and chatting with you, man. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime I get to talk about the team and the program is always fun. But certainly chatting with you has been extra special. And nothing else that I can think of in the moment.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right.